The lights were bright, cameras going, and everyone expected a routine day on the set of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. But nothing could prepare the actors and crew for the devastating storm about to emerge. Just moments after filming began Bambi Benson, noted for keeping her cool even amid intense discussions, released a surprise that left everyone's jaws on the floor, pulling out her phone, her hands trembling. Bambi disclosed deeply distressing text messages she claimed were sent by none other than Kirk. Frost's spouse of longtime castmate Rasheeda began reading these notes aloud, citing frequent harassment and inappropriate demands to spend the night. Anxiety engulfed the set before Bambi could continue speaking. Rasheeda, clearly startled and overtaken with emotion, stormed across the room and delivered a sharp, painful slap across Bambi's face. Cries rang around the studio as security raced forward to separate the two women. The crew halted in shock, the cast members' faces filled with amazement, uncertainty, and fury. What exactly did these texts indicate? Could Kirk Frost truly be guilty of such accusations, or waste this some twisted mistake tearing friendships apart? Brace up, because this drama is only getting begun. Bambi sat on the luxurious studio couch, her legs quivering as she grabbed her phone. The harsh lights of the set seemed to burn through her, yet she refused to look away. The faces around, she, the director, camera operators, cosmetics artists, had all fallen silent, watching as she prepared to confess a fact that she had kept hidden for far too long. Shanaz, her closest friend, stood behind her, eyes wide with anxiety. Jeezy hovered at her side, his stance protective, as if he could cover her from whatever storm was going to break. With a trembling sigh, Bambi raised the phone and began to read aloud. "Kirk Frost," she said, "you told me that if I didn't spend the night with you, you would never sleep again." Her voice quivered, but she forced herself to continue. "You replied, 'I know how to make you feel wonderful, and I aim to make you mine every night.'" Each statement hit the air like a jagged stone on the monitor. The message displayed in bold text, the timestamp flickering mockingly, 3 Mayo. Last Tuesday. The room stayed still, although the tension was intense. Rasheeda, dressed in a modest white robe that typically made her gleam on camera, appeared as though she had been struck. Her eyes glistened with hurt and disbelief. Kirk Frost, standing over to the side near the green room entrance, had his head sunk, looking at the floor. Producers clicked their pencils nervously. Lights paused their whirring. It felt as if time itself had stopped. Bambi gulped hard and pressed on. "Then you wrote, 'If you tell anyone, I'll disclose your secrets and damage your reputation.'" She halted, tears building in those eyes. "I never believed someone could threaten me and someone I cared about in the same breath." She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them and met Rasheeda's gazing. "I showed you these messages because you deserve to know what's been going behind your back." Loud gasp rushed through the group. Shinaz covered her mouth with both hands. Jeez's jaw clenched. One of the makeup artists went forward, handing Bambi a tissue, but she brushed it aside. "No, thank you," she whispered. "I need to finish." The phone glowed in her hand as she scrolled to the next text. "This one is from last night," she said. "I was asleep, but you gave me a voice note saying I'm on my way and I won't take no for an answer." She tapped play. A distorted male voice resonated. In the studio, speakers filled with intense longing. Kirk's hand shot up to his mouth, his knuckles white. Rasheeda's eyes flooded with tears, and she took a step forward. "Bambi, why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, her voice breaking. But before Bambi could react, Rasheeda's face twisted with fury. "You withheld this from me all these weeks?" Her fist sprang out and she struck Bambi so hard that the couch rocked. The crack of skin resonated through the silent set, and Bambi's phone dropped from her grasp and clattered to the floor for a heartbeat. No one moved then. The security guards rushed into action, standing between the two women. Bambi's head fell to the side, her cheek reining. Instantly, tears flowed down her face, but she forced herself to sit upright, looking at Rasheeda with a mix of astonishment and grief. "I'm sorry," Rasheeda mouthed, her own tears overflowing over ass. She stared at her hubby. "I'm so sorry," Jeez muttered. "We need a minute," but his voice shook. Bambi nodded numbly, and Shahnaz knelt behind her, caressing her back carefully. Kirk Frost stood motionless, his remorse imprinted on his face. He eventually lifted his head ashen and opened his mouth, but only a choked sound came. Producers started speaking excitedly on, their headsets deciding whether to cease filming or push through the unplanned meltdown as makeup workers raced over with an ice compress for Bambi's cheek. She grasped Shaz's arm for support. Her voice was hardly heard. "I attempted to warn you. I was afraid every night I felt unsafe." She swallowed hard, then looked at Kirk. "I didn't want to cause issues, but I couldn't keep lying to myself." Rasheeda's shoulders shook with weeping. Kirk took a tentative step forward, lifting his hands in surrender. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never intended to hurt you, Rasheeda." For a time, the three stood in a tense triangle. The cameras had stopped rolling, but the energy surged with intense emotion. The crew members exchanged awkward glances, wondering whether to intervene or respect the painful space. Bambi took a deep breath and forced herself to speak louder. "He threatened me," she added, voice solid despite the quiver. "I have the text you can examine for yourself with shaky fingertips." She signaled for a staff member to move the monitor back into view. The security guard loosened his hold on Rasheeda, who lurched forward, drawn to the evidence on the screen. The written messages slid by statements like, "I own you. You can't escape me. I know what you're hiding." Each more frightening than the last. Rasheeda's sobs transformed into gasps. Kirk's face went pale as a sheet people whispered in the background. A camera operator whispered to the director, "Should I keep rolling?" The director shook his head and signaled to hold. The show's legal team was already gathering close, eyeing the unfolding situation with concern. The makeup artist brushed at Bambi's face, whispering apologies. Bambi pressed on, reading the final message. "You have 3 choices. Comply, confess to everyone that you've been using him, or I make sure you regret it," as the words hung in the air. Rasheeda's face distorted with wrath and anguish. She flung herself at Kirk, fists gripped beneath his chin. He stumbled, backward, eyes wide, as she cried, How could you treat someone I care about like that?" Security guards restrained Rasheeda, putting her arms behind her back. Kirk held up his hand, tears running down his cheeks. Bambi saw her heart racing as her 2 closest friends, one, her best friend the other, her spouse, found themselves on different sides of a violent confrontation. She felt a twinge of shame, but also relief. She had spoken her truth no matter the cost. Shayaz leaned down, whispering passionately in Bambi's ear, "You did the right thing?" Bambi nodded, still shivering. Jeezy placed a protective hand on her shoulder, offering silent encouragement. Producers whispered the plan. Take a 5-minute break, then continue filming after everyone was composed. But it was evident nothing on the show will ever be the same. Outside, the fans who had gathered for filming felt the drama. They pointed telephones to the studio windows, shooting moments for social media. Reports would fly overnight. Bambi slap Rasheeda, clash Kirk revealed, trending on Twitter before morning. The unplanned fight would be the subject of every online conversation, overshadowing any prepared storylines. Back inside, Rasheeda's breath was ragged. She leaned against the makeup mirror, her reflection splitting into shards over the broken lighting. Kirk knelt beside Bambi, reaching for her hand, but she pulled back. The air between them was thick with betrayal, confused. Despite deep emotion, the crew members gave them space, but stood close, ready to interfere if necessary. Bambi took a big breath, collecting her bravery. She glanced at Kirk and added softly, "You need to explain this." Kirk gulped, voice trembling. "I was dumb," he admitted. "I assumed it was flirting. I didn't realize how much it was affecting you and Rasheeda. I never meant for it to go this far." Rasheeda's tears quieted into hiccups. She turned to Kirk, eyes flashing. "You threatened her? You told her she had no option. How could you?" Kirk's voice trembled as he tried to defend himself. "Felt lonely. I missed you." Rasheeda shook her head. "You miss me. You made her miss sleep." Her words sliced through the tension, creating a vacuum in the room. The 5-minute pause slid into 10 as cosmetic artists catered to both women. The director consulted with the legal team, guaranteeing that the performance could continue without violating any lines. Cast members huddled in corners, murmuring ideas and nervously checking phones for viral updates. Bambi sat up straight, wiping her eyes. She gazed at Rasheeda and Kirk, conviction in her glare. "You want this on record," she continued. "No more secrets." Rasheeda stared at her, nodding. Gently, Kirk ran his fingers through his hair. Remorse etched on his face. The storm had only barely begun. And already the lines between friendship, marriage, and treachery had blurred beyond repair. The storm had only barely begun, and already the lines between friendship, marriage, and treachery had blurred beyond. Just as the cameras suddenly turned to a behind-the-scenes footage, the crew hurried to reassemble, muttering urgently into their headphones. Bambi, still clutching her phone, peered at the monitor where the timestamps of Kirk's texts gleamed ominously. Each text felt like a fresh blow, a reminder that this drama was far from ended. Rasheeda sat in a, remarked forcefully, the director, ultimately summoned for everyone to reset lights, dimmed staff. Members repositioned microphones and cameras, and the sound of pleasant banter replaced the earlier startled quiet. Bambi walked to the set's edge, where a stack of script papers lay. She grabbed one up absently. The scheduled scene, a light-hearted group task, felt silly. Now this real-life drama overwhelmed any manufactured fun. She set the pages down and moved away, observing as Rasheeda and Kirk confronted one another. "I need a moment," Rasheeda stated, her voice stronger now but still unsteady. Kirk nodded and led her to an empty dressing room. Bambi exchanged glances with Shaz and Jeezy. They all understood that what occurred next might change everything. The rest of the cast gathered in a loose circle on the floor. Some mumbled, others stared at their phones, ready to spread the news with their following. Mom D, ever the guardian, marched over. She laid a strong grasp on Rasheeda's shoulder, yet Rasheeda was nowhere to be found. Mom D peered around, then turned to Bambi. "Girl, you okay?" she said. Bambi hesitated but nodded. "I'm okay," she replied. Mama D tutted and shook her head. "This is too much for you," she said. "You need to step back until this blows over." Bambi bristled. "No, ma'am, I need them to know the truth." Mom D sighed her concern. "Clear. Please be careful, darling. This is a terrible disaster." As crew members prepared to resume filming, word spread that the scene would shift to an impromptu chia. Producers huddled with the legal team, debating whether to catch Rasheeda's side of the tale on camera under pressure. The network agreed Rasheeda would tape a confessional describing how she felt deceived, and Bambi would film one on why she spoke. Up in the arena of reality, TV drama sold, and this amount of raw emotion was gold. Rasheeda re-emerged from the changing room, her cheeks still smeared with tears. Yet her expression composed. She walked onto the stage where a single camera was already rolling. The director gave a nod, and Rasheeda began. Her voice was calm, even as she spoke directly to the lens. "I adore Kirk more than anything," she said thus. "When I heard those texts, I felt like someone ripped my heart out. I didn't know whether to attack him or hug him. I was so angry and so sad." She paused, her eyes welling up again. "But I decided that if Bambi feels this way, maybe I needed to listen instead of lashing out." The camera cut, and producers cheered. Quietly next, Bambi moved into frame. She took a big breath, staring at the small monitor before speaking. "I never wanted to embarrass anyone," she began, yet after weeks of feeling uncomfortable, I felt I couldn't stay silent. Kirk's messages made me fear for my own well-being. She paused, thinking. The nights she checked locks and stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I hope Rasheeda realizes this isn't about tearing her down. It's about standing up for myself with both confessionals in the can. The set manager called for a little lunch break. The cast scattered. Some went to trailers, others to makeup chairs. Production helpers handed out bottles, water and granola snacks. Cameras were dusted off, microphones recharged. Yet the tension remained like an uninvited intruder off camera. Rasheeda and Kirk faced one another in quiet voices. Jeezy and Shanna's hovered nearby. Kirk said quietly but strongly, I swear I never wanted you to feel threatened, he replied. Rasheeda's arms crossed over her chest. Intent doesn't matter when the consequences so. Dangerous, she answered. Kirk swallowed. I'll remove those texts. I'll apologize publicly. Everything you need. Rasheeda shook her head. It's not about erasing. It's about changing. You need to recognize how your words damage people. Bambi watched them from a distance. Part of her wanted to approach to tell Rasheeda that she was sorry for the slap, that she realized how awful it must have been. Yet another part of her feared reopening the wound. She turned and moved near a window overlooking the studio. Lot outside fans congregated, some clutching placards that read Team Bambi. Others, Stand by Rasheeda. Rumors spread that Kirk had been sending nasty texts Rasheeda had slapped Bambi. The show might potentially face legal action. News fans arrived, finding the set and tweeting live updates. Inside, Matt and other veterans of the show created an impromptu council. They debated tactics. Some said the next reunion show should lead with this occurrence. Some thought it would overshadow other. When the executive producer reclined against a wall, going through social media on his phone, tweets flooded in. Bambi revealed Kirk Rasheeda's smack. Heard around the world, are they going to sue the producer? Grunted. We ride this wave. It's ratings gold. He flicked his phone closed and signaled for everyone to reconvene. The afternoon session began with a group sequence. Intended to show friendliness, the ensemble sat in a circle scripted to discuss highlights from the season. Jeezy appeared uneasy when he introduced the part, then hesitated when the director screamed out, "Hold on." The director indicated to someone off camera. A cameraman adjusted his lens, focusing on Kirk Frost, who was going to say his first line. Since the tragedy, Kirk cleared his throat and said, I want to apologize to everyone, especially to Bambi and Rasheeda. I let things get out of hand. I'm committed to making this right. The cameras rolled, filming each timid nod and strained grin. Bambi managed a modest tilt of her head. Rasheeda looked away, brushing at her tears. The situation felt unreal. They were acting in a scenario. Nevertheless, the underlying pain beneath every phrase was real. The director shot various angles, guaranteeing the audience would detect every tremble in their voices. Later, during a break, Bambi's phone chimed with an incoming text. She glanced at it. A producer sought assurance that she consented to utilizing the film of Rasheeda's smack. She hesitated, then replied with a simple, "Ease, the legal team would handle the rest." She pocketed her phone and exhaled, preparing herself for what happened next. When afternoon moved into nightfall, the stage seemed like a powder keg. Every glance passed amongst castmates held hidden questions. Whispers trailed Bambi and Rasheeda down the hall. Cameras were put away for now, but the prospect of being filmed never left anyone's mind. Kirk's messages, the slap, the confessionals. They would appear on the next week and millions of viewers would see them backstage. Disputes had already broken out about whose side they were on. Bambi found Shaz in a corner browsing through her phone. They want me to keep playing. Nice on TV, Bambi said, but I don't know if I can. Shanaz nodded sympathetically. Honesty is messy, she replied, but it's what you needed. They embraced briefly. Bambi felt a wave of appreciation and terror, gratitude for the support, anxiety for what the future days would bring. As the sun sank over the atmosphere buzzed with expectancy. The unscripted drama had overwhelmed any prepared plotline, and the cast realized that nothing would ever be the same. Fans would pick sides, rumors would swirl, and the aftermath would be devastating. Yet, in that moment, amid the stress and sadness, Bambi had an odd sense of satisfaction. She had spoken her truth, forced the concealed into the open, and no matter what occurred next, she had seized charge of her own story. The next morning dawned with a tight stillness over the studio lot. Crew members trickled in, whispers already flowing like wildfire. By the time Bambi arrived, beauty artists were gathered in groups, their voices ceasing as she, passing Shaz, intercepted her near the trailers. Are you ready? She questioned softly with a reassuring grin. Bambi nodded, stroking the cloth of her costume. Inside, Kirk Frost sat. Kirk Frost sat alone in a small green room, head in his hands. Reliving every moment of yesterday's mayhem, Rasheeda was not to be spotted. She had sought extra time before returning to stage. Producers were highly aware that filming could not resume unless Rasheeda consented to participate. Roughly 30 minutes later, Rasheeda stepped onto the lot, her visage guarded. She avoided eye contact with Kirk, passing by him as though he were a stranger. The tension was real enough to taste. Bambi stared from a distance, pulse beating. She worried if Rasheeda would forgive her, or if the rift was too deep to fix the cameras. Stayed off, giving the cast a little window to gather before the next scenes in the hallway. Mama D confronted Kirk. Quietly. "You better have something real to say," reprimanded Kirk. Looked up, his eyes red. "I do," he responded. "I'll do anything it takes." She nodded curtly and turned away. The call to set resonated through the building. A single camera rolled as the cast gathered for a group interview described as capturing the aftermath. The director's voice burst over the speaker. Action Jeezy took the lead, his face strained as he addressed the camera. "We're all struggling with a lot right now. This happened off script and it's true." He glanced at Bambi, then at Rasheeda, giving them both a signal to talk. Bambi took in a steadying breath. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she began, voice calm but gentle. "I only wanted to feel safe." Rasheeda's gaze drifted between Kirk and Bambi. "I'm still trying to understand what happened," she remarked, her tone controlled. "I love Kirk, but I can't ignore my own pain." While the confessional wrapped, the rest of the cast sought to continue. Normal activities, cameras cut. Yet the energy lingered. Charged, the producers huddled, planning the next sequence. A couple's therapy moment with a trained counselor called in to mediate. The aim was to face the issue head on. However, some cast members felt nervous. Bambi and Rasheeda exchanged a reluctant look. They knew this would be uncomfortable, but they also knew it was important in the therapy room. The counselor, a calm woman with years of experience, sat behind a tiny table. Chairs were positioned facing each other. Kirk sat opposite from Rasheeda, while Bambi perched on a seat to the side. The atmosphere was packed with expectation.